Okay, so I'm going to talk now about the three card trick. I have to get a new pen. Okay, so we really want to do a number of different things in Spanish Solutions and Funding Factory. What we really want to do is we want to firstly have lots of liquidity, so we can lend at scale and grow really rapidly and completely dominate the market. And this desire for liquidity, that kind of implies a number of things. Like, it implies that we'll probably want access to wholesale funding, and via a line of credit, commercial line of credit. And we will also want to do debt sales. We will also, where we want to attract investment from private individuals, we will want investors to have easy entry and exit. With no threshold. And by threshold I mean no minimum investment. So obviously, if we're in the business of acting as a broker between peer-to-peer on an equity release basis, we're talking about something that is going to cost. So the cost of an average loan, or the amount of an average loan, on the basis of it being 30% loan to value on a €150,000 property, and that works out at about 45, or actually does work out at exactly 45k. So, and also the duration of an equity release mortgage is going to be, and we're reckoning probably between 7 to 9 years. Could be more. And even though what we've modeled so far is we're basically providing these products to people who are 72 years and older. We can go younger. We could go 65 or 60, and obviously the loan to value ratio would decrease. And if they wanted to maintain the loan to value ratio, they would probably be looking at a higher interest rate and also more expensive crossover insurance. And the crossover insurance is basically the thing that ensures that we don't end up in negative equity based on the accrued interest plus principal exceeding the value of the property when it's sold. Okay, so we want to kind of get rid of these two things particularly, and we want to make it easy for individual investors to enter and exit. And we also want to, we want them to, not have to stump up 45k. If they want to enter, they can do 2k or 1k, and we're looking for a very short duration commitment. Maybe the ideal model is we expect a month's notice if they want to withdraw funds. So it just makes the whole thing a lot more palatable for an investor. They're not locking away something indefinitely, and they're also investing not on a one-to-one basis, but they're investing in a kind of fund type scenario. So this is what I think might actually work and still facilitate a peer-to-peer arrangement in Spain, but behind the scenes would be connected up to a more commercially scalable scenario with access to normal wholesale funding, debt sales, and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's what I'm calling my three-card trick. So, we have wholesale lenders here. And these wholesale lenders, they would normally lend to financial institutions. And we have a client financial institution. Now, we may actually own this financial institution, and I don't know where this institution could be. So it might be in Cayman, for instance. And or some low tax, no tax typed jurisdiction. It doesn't have to be Cayman. It could be Andorra, Liechtenstein. It could be Jersey, Ireland, Netherlands, Luxembourg. I don't know. It could be one of these places that's easy to set up in, and where the amount of time and effort involved in doing financial reporting isn't that great, and the reg, while there, is not onerous. What we're trying to avoid is a Spanish scenario where we have to register with the Bank of Spain. So this financial institution, anyway, based in Cayman, possibly owned by us, then loans to Ian or George or Lorcan for their private investment purposes. Okay, so just say the wholesale lender extends a line of credit of 30 million to the financial institution in Cayman, and they in turn lend 30 million to one of these three ne'er-do-wells, and they then go on, and there's loads of borrowers here in Spain. Borrower 1 to borrower 5,000. So we as individuals make one-to-one private lending agreements with the individuals, and basically these individuals, because it's a private lending arrangement here in Spain, and this is Spain, and all this is happening offshore. So effectively what's happening here is in Spain we're just making a private lending arrangement. Ian may be lending to say 200 borrowers, and he might be doing that in unison with George or individually, same with Lorcan and same with George. So there's this many-to-many relationship going on between the lenders and the borrowers, and all governed by private agreements. So over a period of time, this financial institution lends anytime Ian, George or Lorcan want to privately lend to an individual, and they come up against their the limit of their line of credit, okay? And when that point is reached, then they can do a debt sale. So just like any normal scenario, the debt owed by Ian, and the debt owed by George, the debt owed by Lorcan is then sold. There are underlying that debt are private agreements that George, Ian and Lorcan have with the borrowers, and they're essentially backed up by assets in turn. And I'm kind of thinking that we could probably leverage this sort of arrangement with financial institutions to get us wholesale lending and to also facilitate debt sales. Now, the other thing it does is it allows us to come along with private investors. So rather than having this offshore funding, we would have a whole series of investors, small-time investors, all the way to investor number N. It's more like investor N. So all the way up to investor N, we have people also funding us. And effectively what we're doing is we're gathering together. They may only have €1,000 or something like that to invest, and they may want to invest it for a short duration. One of the sticking points previously has been that if you're investing in a long-term instrument, like something that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the future, there's very little capacity for you to kind of back out of that deal, and you also need to put in a certain amount if you're doing a one-to-one on a particular property. So you're having to come up with 45 grand and say goodbye to that for 7 to 9 years, and potentially you could be unlucky and somebody could could be in bad health, could be say 70 but lives to 100. And in that case, you're sitting around, you're waiting for 30 years, and you won't end up in a situation where you're in negative equity, because you will have crossover insurance paid for by the borrower, but you are going to be waiting an exceedingly long amount of time. So how we get around that is Ian, George and Lorcan, they actually go, their debt is registered on the deeds on the land registry relative to the property that the borrower is borrowing against. So they maintain their interest for as long as is necessary until the property is sold, and the receipts, the funds are received from that sale to cover the principal and the accrued interest. But Ian, George and Lorcan can form individual relationships with these investors that are much more kind of fungible, that can be changed, like they can exist for a week or a month or something like that, and they don't require the investor to put in 45,000. They might only require him to put in 1,000. We will have to work out the threshold in terms of the cost of processing all of this, but that allows the individual, we can actually pay the individual back as we go on, and we're starting to receive funds in through people passing away, we can actually pay the investors back. So we probably look for these small-time investors to kind of be initially locked in for maybe 18 months to 2 years. We find in the 18th month of the model that the model becomes self-sustaining. In other words, even though we're growing our customer base, the influx of monies from sales reaches a point where we plateau out at a capital demand of about 88 million or slightly over that, and then we start reducing after that in time, and that allows for a growth year on year of 2,000 new arrangements. So what else to say? So we've covered the fact that this facilitates wholesale funding and debt sales, which in turn play into the liquidity card, which is the big thing. And we've also talked about how a facility like this, a three-stage trick, So these are the stages, the cards, if you like, and how that facilitates easy investor entry and exit from the point of a low or no threshold and no lock-in periods or low lock-in periods. So I'm going to cover next the strength of our offering in the current climate. Thank you.